The core ideology of nonviolence, ahimsa, is strongly connected to avoidance of violence, to refrain from harming others through use of actions or words. Around the 20th century, the philosophy developed into something concrete, as a counter-strategy, as a method of resistance, as the core of civil movements to achieve social justice and social transformations. Studies based on many successful examples around the world show that nonviolent resistance are more successful than violent protests, and they tend to attract a broad base of support than violent protests. Yet, the use of violence over nonviolence to achieve social justice is often contested, and the mechanisms by which nonviolent actions do well are underexplored. Through this video, we attempt to investigate and understand the domains of nonviolent struggles that stand out and ensure justice, ensure victory. Let's look at one of the most powerful examples of nonviolent resistance, an immeasurable display of courage, democratic expressions, and power of collective voices demonstrated by the citizens of Nepal.
गीत हुनेले गीत थपाउ स्वर हुनेले स्वर थपाउ सिप हुनेले चिडिया खानामा नयाँ एउटा खोर थपाउ नयाँ खोरमा नयाँ जन्तु थप्ने होइन पुरानो एउटा चोर थपाउ.
Nepal on Sunday adopted its new secular and democratic constitution.
In the south of Asia, sandwiched between two giants, India and China, Nepal is relatively a small country located in the foothills of the Himalayas. While Nepal is globally renowned for being the birthplace of Lord Buddha, the symbol of peace and non-violence, Nepal is also recalled for the decade-long violent insurgency. In February of 1996, the Communist Party of Nepal Maoist launched an armed struggle against class and ethnicity-based structural discriminations and against monarchy and feudalism in the country. The revolt lasted for a decade and claimed almost 13,000 Nepali lives, uprooted nearly 500,000 people within the country, and severely damaged the country's economy and infrastructures. The dynamics of the armed struggle, however, shifted fundamentally after the brutal massacre of King Birendra and the royal family of Nepal in 2001. Following this dark turn of events, late king's brother King Gyanendra succeeded the throne. In 2005, he dismissed the then prevailing Nepalese parliament indefinitely, took ownership of all executive powers of the country, and instated military rule. This caused a whirlwind of political unrest. All political parties turned up against the palace and the monarchy as a whole. Nepal's monarchical history dates back to the 18th century, so opposing the centuries-old structure of governance was challenging yet monumental for Nepal's democratic grounds. This political opposition made way to formation of the Seven-Party Alliance. This alliance was basically a coalition of opposition leaders that included almost 90% of the members of the dissolved parliament. Their primary goals were to reinstate multi-party, democratic rule by re-establishing the old Nepalese parliament, hold elections, and establish a constituent assembly to draw up a new constitution. The Maoists too decided to abandon the People's War and join the mainstream multi-party politics. In September 2005, the Maoists announced ceasefire. In the following November, a 12-point agreement was signed between the SPA and the Maoists that laid a strong foundation for the 2006 April Uprising, Jana Andolan II. The core of this 19-day-long protest demanded a step down of authoritarian ruler and return to democracy.
जनताको नासो जनतालाई नै फर्काएका छौं.
It strived for establishment of lasting peace and inclusion of diverse ethnic and indigenous groups and historically marginalized groups in social, economic, and political processes of the country. It was a part of a larger democratic movement in Nepal. The April Uprising, Jana Andolan too, has also been an exceptional political case study for many researchers and academicians relevant to fields of peace and conflict, development, governance, and nonviolent resistance. A deeper analysis of the movement shows that the struggle used nonviolent strategies like general strikes, assemblies of protests or support, economic shutdowns, marches, tax boycotts, displays of national flags and symbolic colors, and chantings of pro-democracy slogans. This 19-day protest was joined by thousands of Nepalese from all walks of life. It included groups of doctors and medical practitioners, human rights activists, alliance of women and indigenous communities, journalists, and even family members of the national security workforces. But they were still met with violence from the opposition. Violent and repressive tactics were used against the protest groups, like use of tear gas, baton charges, use of rubber bullets. The government went as far as to announce a shoot-at-sight curfew between 9 a.m. and 10 p.m. every day. Despite the hostility, the sheer motivation and sense of urgency displayed by the movement was able to directly accomplish one of the major goals of the movement: reinstating the Nepalese parliament, ending the emergency rule, and ultimately restraining the powers of the king. Although it took another 2 years before the king was officially dethroned and Nepal was declared a republic, the 2006 April Uprising is still recalled as a crucial stepping stone that carried the country's transition to democratic rule. And it is recognized as one of the most successful examples of the power of the people to bring social change. From the many regional and global examples around us, we can draw that nonviolent strategies help to build structured groups made up of people who by themselves may have little power to pursue justice, but together they can effectively achieve and sustain justice. The nonviolent movements create much more durable and internally peaceful democracies than transitions that are provoked by violent insurgencies. It is a lesson to learn that nonviolent movements create much more durable and internally peaceful democracies than the ones created by violent insurgencies.